Through the centuries, pearls have always been desired for their beauty. Recognizing this, manufacturers of vehicle refinishing materials have incorporated mica particles into some paints to imitate this natural iridescent pearl effect. This program explains the two principal paint finishes available and demonstrates suitable repair methods. There are two basic types of pearl paint, 2-coat and 3-coat. Different names are used by the various paint and vehicle manufacturers to describe their finishes, but mostly they can be fitted into one of these two categories. Let's take a look at how these paints produce their effects. Conventional metallics contain aluminium particles which reflect light from the surface of the paint. No light is able to penetrate into the paint due to the opacity of the aluminium particles and the heavy concentration of pigment. 2-coat pearls produce an enhanced metallic effect, and repair procedure is the same as for metallic finishes. However, mica particles are used instead of aluminium. The mica, which is in the form of platelets, can be up to 48 microns across, but is less than a micron thick. It's coated with titanium dioxide and/or iron oxide and added to the paint during manufacture. Because the mica particles are translucent, some light is reflected off them, whilst the remainder passes through and is reflected off particles deeper in the paint film, producing a slightly different color. 3-coat pearls make use of the same mica particles, but the paint contains less color pigment than the 2-coat, so it's less opaque. A ground coat, usually white, is applied between the primer and the pearl color coats. Viewed square on, this ground coat is more visible. Viewed from other angles, the pearl effect is greater. There are also special effect pearl finishes. Manufacturers are still experimenting with these, although they're available to the customizing market. The mica particle in this case is coated with a controlled thickness of titanium dioxide. By varying the thickness of this coating, different colors can be produced without using color pigment. The coating interferes with the light path so that a single color is reflected and the complementary color is transmitted. This transmitted color is reflected off the ground coat. Again, the color observed is dependent on the viewing angle. This color change is often described as the flip tone. Different paint and vehicle manufacturers use slightly different techniques and materials to produce their pearl and mica finishes, so their specific recommendations should always be followed. This right-hand front door has been vandalized. Finished in cherry red 2-coat pearl, the Montego will be repaired using the same method as for a conventional metallic. Before starting work, it's important to remove any traffic film, silicone wax and grease, so the damaged panel is cleaned with degreasing solvent and blown off. A piece of masking tape along the join will prevent unnecessary damage to the adjoining panel. The scratch is dry flatted and feathered out using 180 grade paper. The preparation area is well ventilated and has a good extraction system. The value of the masking tape can now clearly be seen. The experienced painter can easily feel the panel contours to find out if flatting has been completed to his satisfaction. The door trim has now also been protected with masking tape. Grey Scotch-Brite is then used to degloss the surrounding panel and the dust is blown off. Another solvent wash and blow-off are carried out before masking. Because white metal has been revealed, a chromate etch primer must be used. This is mixed in a 1-to-1 ratio with the activator. Prior to spraying, The area is washed with solvent, blown off and tack wiped to remove any remaining dust particles. The etch primer is restricted to the bare metal area. During the 5-minute flash-off period, the primer is mixed in a ratio of 6:1. A 2-pack primer is to be used, essential on cars less than 6 years old, in order to maintain the validity of the anti-corrosion warranty. 2 coats of primer are applied with 5 to 10 minutes flash-off between each. The second coat should cover a greater area and be built up to a uniform level with the existing paintwork. The car is low-baked at 60 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes. Meanwhile, the color has been mixed in a 2:1 ratio. The viscosity is checked using a DIN number 4 cup. A flow time of 15 seconds is required. The test panel is sprayed to opacity after 3 coats. 2 coats of lacquer have also been applied. A guide coat covers the primed area before the car leaves the booth. Having removed the masking, the test panel can be checked. Color identification was relatively easy in this case because we were dealing with a manufacturer's recognized optional finish. A second opinion is always valuable when checking test panels. The primer is flatted using 400 grade paper. Thatcham prefers dry flatting, which avoids the corrosive properties of water, and it's much cleaner. After blow-off, the whole of the side of the car is washed with solvent. An ultra-fine grade Scotch-Brite is used to abrade the adjacent panels. In this case, the fade-out will be achieved across the front wing and the rear door. A further solvent wash is carried out to ensure good adhesion of masking materials. It's important to remember to clean inside door apertures and down the inside of the bonnet aperture. Prior to masking, a tack cloth is used along panel edges to remove any remaining contaminants. Cleanliness is vital. Once in the booth, the area to be painted is again washed with solvent, blown off and tack wiped. As the test panel showed, 3 coats of color need to be applied. 5 minutes flash-off is allowed between each coat. A standard gun fade-out technique is employed so that each color and lacquer coat overlaps the preceding one. On the final coat, the color is flicked out at the end of each gun pass to achieve the fade-out. The rear door and front wing are gently tack wiped to remove any overspray. The 2 lacquer coats are then applied. The car is baked for 30 minutes at 60 degrees centigrade. This process is the same as is used for base coat and clear finishes, and no problems should arise if proper cleaning and preparation procedures are carried out. This Saab is finished in a 3-coat pearl system. At present, Saab are not producing cars in pearl, but the repair method described is broadly applicable to any 3-coat finish. In theory, there is a problem with blending in 3-coat pearls. Every time a coat of pearl color is added, the color changes up to a maximum of 5 coats. The color match will be achieved somewhere between 1 coat and 5. So in this case, 3 coats have been applied across the repaired area. But immediately adjacent, there are now 6 coats of pearl, then 5, then 4. This can produce a very visible halo. However, careful attention to gun procedures and techniques of application usually overcome this difficulty. Panel damage on this front wing has already been repaired. The paint will be blended in over the bonnet and the two doors. The pearl color code was checked on the plate and identified in the book as Perlamore. The color swatch proved to be a good match with the existing paintwork. However, there was no indication as to the correct ground code to use, so this information had to be obtained by phoning the paint manufacturer's color service.
Know which ground coat you use.
Three-coat pearl is in essence a sophisticated base coat and clear system, so repair procedure is very similar to that used on the two-coat pearl Montego. The edges of the damaged areas are feathered out with 180 grade paper. Red Scotch-Brite is used to prepare the rest of the wing. Having masked up, etch primer is applied over bare metal areas, and then the primer is applied. The ground coat and the pearl color can now be mixed. Test panels assume extra importance with three-coat pearl finishes. Spraying 3 panels at once saves time later. The ground coat is applied first and sprayed to opacity. 3 coats in this case. The first 2 coats of pearl color are applied to all 3 panels. One of the panels is then removed. The third coat of pearl is applied. A second panel is then removed. The fourth coat of pearl is applied. The other 2 panels are replaced, and 2 coats of lacquer are applied to all 3 test panels. Meanwhile, the primer has been baked, and a guide coat is sprayed on. Having removed the masking, the 3 test panels are checked. The color should always be checked from both the direction of the light source and the direction of the reflection, the same as checking side and face tones on conventional metallics. 3 coats will be required. The primer is dry flatted using 400 paper, and the 2 doors and the bonnet are prepared with grey Scotch-Brite. Once in the booth, the panels are cleaned for the final time. The ground coat can now be applied. Paint repairs should be contained within the minimum number of panels. However, 3-coat pearls require an additional fade-out process for the ground coat, so depending on the extent of the damage and the paint system used, it is sometimes necessary to fade out into a 4th panel, the rear door in this case. No flatting is carried out between the application of the ground coat and the pearl, so strict cleanliness must be observed. The 2-coat material contains far more pigment than the 3-coat, making it opaque, whilst the pearl coats of the 3-coat system have only limited covering power. This leaves the ground coat clearly visible, so a virtually perfect ground coat is essential. The tack cloth is used after each coat of the ground coat and the pearl to ensure that there are no dust particles causing contamination. Finally, 2 coats of clear lacquer are applied. The car is baked for 30 minutes at 60 degrees centigrade. Such excellent results can be obtained by any experienced painter following the methods outlined in this program. It is also very important to pay particular attention to the paint manufacturer's literature, which should be consulted at all times.